So, in order to solve absolute value equations, let's walk through the steps first and then start attacking a problem or two. So, step number one, what you have to do is you have to isolate the absolute value. Isolate the absolute value. In other words, make it such that you have an absolute value all by itself. So simply it says the absolute value equals something. There's nothing else on the left side besides the absolute value bars. So that's our very first step. We're going to get that all by its lonesome. Okay. Next, we're going to split the equation. And I'm going to say EQ for equation. And such that one is going to be a positive and one is going to be a negative. We'll explain that in just a moment. But we'll have a positive version of it and a negative version of it. Next, we're going to solve each. And for the most part, there will be two equations to solve. Later, we're going to say inequalities to solve. And lastly, we're going to check the solutions. We're going to isolate the absolute value. We're going to split the equation, so there's a positive and a negative. Then we're going to solve each one individually, independent of each other. And then we're going to check our solutions. All right, so taking a gander at this first one here. We're going to solve each absolute value equation. So x, absolute value of x equals 4. Well, how do we isolate? That's the first question. Look on the left side. Is there anything besides the absolute value bar? Is there anything outside of it? Like over here or over here? And clearly we see there's nothing else. Its absolute value is isolated. It's all by itself. So step one is done for us. So now we get to do step two, which is a split. And what's the split look like? The split, you drop the bars and write exactly what you see. So erase the bar to get x equals 4. And then the other one is you write exactly what you see over here, except you make the 4 into a negative. Why is that true? Well, let's think about it. As we check our solution, we're going to think about it. What value can I put into the original problem? What value can I put into the original problem to get positive 4? Well, clearly we see that positive 4 equals the absolute value of 4 is equal to 4. And we also see that the absolute value of negative 4 is equal to 4. So no matter which one we substitute in, either the 4 up there or the negative 4 up there, we still get it. This one will simply say no solution. Again, why no solution? Because the absolute value of a number cannot be negative. Cannot be negative. So as we look at number 2a, as was said, we see that there is a plus 5. Now, is this inside or outside the absolute value? Outside. Since it's outside, then step number 1 holds true, which up here, step number 1 said this. We need to isolate the absolute value. So I have to go here and isolate the absolute value by getting rid of the 5. So I'm going to subtract 5 from los dos lados. And when I do that, I now get the absolute value of D is equal to positive 8. Now we can do our split. And our split will look like this. D equals 8. D equals negative 8. Now, of course, there's nothing further to solve. Those are my answers. And we could actually probably put an or in there. It's one or the other. because technically it can't be both at the same time. It's either 8 or -8. You can put them in independently. Clearly, we see that we're just going to simply drop the bars because the absolute value is already isolated. And of course, the absolute value being positive works out well. Now, the other one is exactly what I see there in blue, and I just make the 9 negative, like so. Now we're going to solve them individually, completely individually. We do not need, the first one does not affect the second one. Although, since I'm going to add 6 here, I'm going to add 6 there. It turns out I'm going to add 6 here, and I'm going to add 6 there. So I'm going to be adding 6 quite a bit all over the place. So I'm going to get rid of that one, then I'm going to get rid of that one there. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to add 6 everywhere, like so. And then 3c equals some number, 15. And 3c does not equal -15 over here. It equals -3. So beware. It's, as we see here, it begins, the 9 and the -9 are negatives. But down here does not mean that my answer will be negatives or my solutions will be negative. Just because I start out with opposites doesn't mean I will end up with opposites. So continuing on, now I divide everything by 3 here, and dividing by 3 here will give me a -1.